Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Michaela McShane, and it is my privilege to welcome you all to today's Startup NASA Feature Series presentation. This monthly series provides an opportunity for NASA technology-derived startup companies to share their stories, including how they got involved with NASA and where they are currently in the development of their new product or service. NASA's Technology Transfer Program ensures that innovations developed for exploration and discovery are broadly available to the public, thereby maximizing the benefit to the nation. The T2X program augments that mission to include a focus on entrepreneurial innovation and creating partnerships to help accelerate commercialization. This includes our Technology Transfer University program, where we work in collaboration with academic institutions to provide hands-on, real-world experience for professors and students. We invite you to visit the NASA Tech Transfer website for more information on available licensing opportunities and other initiatives. And stay tuned for registration information for our next Startup NASA Feature Series presentation from Link Research on July 21st. Thank you again for joining us today. We're looking forward to hearing from Onedrus, and I hope you enjoy the presentation. Today's speaker is Aaron Wallace. Aaron Wallace was raised in San Diego, California, and attended UCLA on a full-ride academic scholarship. Upon graduating, he was selected to the 2016 NFL Draft to the Tennessee Titans. Over his professional athletic career, he played with the Titans, Bengals, and Broncos before retiring in late 2019. Aaron is currently pursuing his MBA from Indiana University and is involved in several entrepreneurship and career development programs. Following his participation in the 2020 FedTech cohort, he became a co-founder and CEO of the air filtration startup Onedrus, utilizing NASA's multi-stage filtration system technology. With that, I'll hand things over to Aaron to get us started for today's presentation.
Thank you, Michaela, for the introduction. First thing, I just want to say thank you to the entire Tech Transfer team and to everybody attending today. I really appreciate everybody being here and listening about our startup and how we got involved with Tech Transfer. So our company is called Onedrus. This is a brief kind of elevator pitch to what we do and who we are. So the Onedrus air filtration system is for facility professionals who want outstanding indoor air quality with minimal maintenance. Our scroll filter technology allows the user to remotely service air filtration when needed, instantly replacing your dirty filter media with new material, reducing time, cost, and waste, replacing overloaded filters. From common office spaces to operating rooms, the Onedrus air filtration system is configured to desired MERV efficiency up to HEPA-grade filtration. We'll get into a little bit more about what that means and kind of what that looks like a little bit later on. So the Onedrus team is myself, Aaron Wallace. Just kind of heard a brief bio about me. Before I got involved with entrepreneurship and tech transfer, I was in the NFL. I retired in 2019 and really found a passion for entrepreneurship and business. Ben Woods, he came on, we all met in the FedTech program. He was actually a mentor to us. Ben Woods is leading our product development. I guess his technical role would be the chief operating officer for us. He's an internationally recognized expert in user experience and product design with more than two decades of experience across multiple industries, ranging from startups to Fortune 500 companies. Sorry, you guys probably can see this too. Next, we have Mark Gossett. Mark is our chief marketing officer. He's an experienced professional in pharmaceuticals, biotechnology, and medical devices. He's been in various roles within that, from sales, marketing, business strategy. So he kind of is a jack of all trades for us. He can help out in a bunch of different areas. Karishma Bali is a master's in global entrepreneurship management and a master's in medical physiology. She has experience as a business consultant in the healthcare, agriculture, and medical device field, and was looking for an opportunity to combine her experience in science with entrepreneurship. And the last member here is Chuck Fensky. He was actually the newest member to the team. He joined after FedTech. When we evaluated our, skills, and as a team, we decided that finance was an area that we could be stronger in. We were fortunate to get connected with Chuck through Ben. He was a colleague of his at Weatherhead School of Management, I believe. And Chuck has, around 20 years in the finance industry. He's been in a number of roles, has worked with construction projects, and, has been a really good addition to our team and really filled a need that, we thought needed to be addressed. So starting off with kind of how we got involved into kind of NASA tech transfer, this is more of a personal slide because this was my first experience with tech transfer. When I was in the NFL Players Association does a number of off-season opportunities for players to get experience to different businesses and careers and kind of work on some career development. In 2020, they had a program with the Johnson Space Center in Houston for NFL players to come in for, I think it was 3 or 4 days, and learn about tech transfer, get an intro to entrepreneurship, and see how you could use NASA technology to build our business. That for me was a really kind of a turning point. I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do after football, and spending those few days there, learning about entrepreneurship and the tech transfer program, I think really inspired me to pursue entrepreneurship and introduced me to NASA Tech Transfer and all the opportunities that they had there. I also got to meet, a lot of really great people from NASA, Eric McGill, Chris Romig, Dennis Small, Steven Gonzalez, all people that I still talk to this day, who have been really along with me, like through the journey of tech transfer. So from there, I was introduced to the FedTech Program, and that's where our team came together. That's how we found our technology and, really kind of set out on, I guess, the wondrous journey, if you want to call it. FedTech is an institution that runs a series of programs throughout the year. We did the NASA Startup Studio. I think this is the actual, flyer for the program that we were in. Basically what they do is they partner with government agencies who have tech transfer programs. They get entrepreneurs, mentors, and instructors to bring them all together, basically do the research for this technology to prove, like, is this a viable business or not? Prior to this program, we had never met each other as a team. We were randomly assigned. But I think we were pretty fortunate in the grouping that we had. We had a good mix of experience and youth, and a pretty wide range of I guess, areas that people have worked in, from product design, marketing, sales, all that stuff. Ben Woods, and I forgot to mention Tim Hanlon. They were our mentors during that program. Ben joined our team after FedTech, and Tim is actually a strategic advisor to us with a lot of experience in marketing. Sorry. So how our technology got selected, we actually had to rank them 1 through 5 based on kind of what we wanted. I think that the air filter was probably my last choice. I didn't really know anything about air filtration, so it wasn't really something I was kind of jumping at. But as we went through the program and did the research and talked to people in HVAC and air filtration, it kind of became clear that we really had a good technology here that addressed an issue that a lot of people were having. And as we went through the program and I was listening to other groups go, I realized that some technologies were really specific and they solved a really specific problem. So there weren't a ton of places to look where it can be applied. We kind of had the opposite problem where, anytime you step into a commercial building, your air is going to be filtered in some way. So we had a ton of places to look, a lot of people to talk to, and over the program, I think we covered a lot of ground. filling that knowledge gap that we had. So when we first got the technology, this was pretty much all we had to go off of to kind of understand what it was. Like we only had a few pictures, and this is the multi-stage air filtration device that we had, researched and we're going to license. So the picture on the left is a diagram, a rendering of the system that they had on the ISS. You can't really tell, it's not a great picture, but it's kind of the best one I have to describe it. So it works in 3 stages. Each stage is designed to filter out a different size particle, starting from the largest to the smallest. So you have your impact stage, your scroll filter stage, and your main filter stage. The main filter stage would just be any kind of filter, box filter that you could buy off the store. The scroll filter is actually what the license was for, and it really is probably the most important part, not probably, it is the most important part of our filter. This is the portion that allows us to remotely service our filter. This is a better picture of the scroll on the right. So basically you would have your clean filter material on one side, it goes through the scrolls system here, and the dirty filter media would be on the other side. As your filter gets dirty, you would activate the filter, it would scroll from this side to this side, and you would have your dirty media replaced with, a clean sheet. For our application, the ISS had a 3-tier system. For our application, we don't necessarily need all 3. We can use them, but we can just use the scroll filter stage if we want. We can combine the scroll and the main. So we can configure it in different ways depending on, how much filtration and efficiency we want. Yeah. So shifting a little bit more, I guess, to the problem and the topic that we're addressing here. And that's indoor air quality. We think about what's outside and probably what we can see. If you're far enough away from Los Angeles, you can see kind of the pollution and smog sometimes covering the city, especially like downtown. But as we did research, we found that, indoor air quality is just important, if not more. There are a couple things that stand out here. Mainly, we spend 90% of our time indoors. Indoor air pollution can be 2 to 50 times more polluted than what's outside. And then a big one that will come up later is the 1 in 5 people perform maintenance on their air conditioning system. And, that could be residential or commercial, but, maintenance and poor habits are one of the main problems on why air filtration is kind of in the state that it's in. So what's on your filter? A whole lot of things. Biological contaminants, mold, dust, pollen, pet, hair, dander, carbon dioxide, smoke, pesticide, lead. If you're using cleaning materials inside, some of the aerosol stuff, that's going to go through your filter, and it just kind of builds up until your filter is overloaded and kind of puts a strain on your system. I think when we walk into buildings, the air filter isn't something that we see, so it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. We assume that, that building managers, facility professionals are doing their job, replacing their filters. But in reality, sometimes, these air filters get overloaded and they can look like this. And, this contains all of the kind of nasty stuff that was listed on the previous slide. So why are overloaded filters bad for an HVAC system? Well, one of the main things is it can lead to HVAC system failure. Your filters are your first line of defense for your HVAC system. If something is wrong and a technician comes out, your air filters will be the first thing that he checks. It's almost guaranteed that if you're running an overloaded filter for long periods of time, that something is going to go wrong somewhere in your HVAC system, whether it's the coils or the fans or anything like that. Short cycling. Short cycling is when your HVAC system is kind of turning off and on throughout the day. Um, as your filters get dirtier, these cycles become more frequent and can lead to things like noise pollution, wasted energy, and really uncomfortable temperature changes. Overloaded filters can also lead to high energy usage. As filters get dirtier, the fans in your HVAC system need to work harder to maintain the required airflow for your HVAC system to work properly. So if your filters are really overloaded, your fans will work harder, and that can eventually lead to, HVAC system failure and increased energy usage. The Department of Energy estimates that overloaded filters can cause your HVAC system to use 15% more energy than it should be. And when you consider that, 40% of energy usage in commercial buildings is coming from HVAC, and within that, most of that is your fans, overloaded filters can really just, lead to wasted energy. And then obviously, poor indoor air quality. You know, you don't want any of this stuff coming through your system, getting backed up in there, and, you breathing it. So what is the actual problem in air filtration? Because it's actually not even overloaded filters. That's just kind of filters working how they should be. Over time, they're going to get dirtier. The efficiency will actually increase as filters get dirtier until it crosses that threshold where, it's just putting too much strain on your system. And I think that the problem in air filtration really is maintenance and servicing. And the inception of the idea for this system on the ISS, I think really demonstrates why tech transfer is a good place to look for technologies to build businesses around. As we were told, the ISS had a problem with their filtering or with the maintenance. They were just doing it too often, I think every 2 weeks. And on the space station, every minute, counts. So they needed a way to kind of service their air filters without having to spend so much time and effort doing it. So essentially they went out and they solved the problem. They built a system that, was for the ISS that could remotely service itself and provide them with, the air filtration in space that, is really critical up there for sure. But when we did the research here, we found that a lot of businesses and a lot of buildings were having the same issue. Servicing and maintaining these filters were just too much of a problem for them. And they really wanted something that really gave them, high efficiency filtration, but was less maintenance and could scroll itself. So the problem is the cost. In a commercial building, you could have hundreds of filters, possibly, thousands if you're running multiple buildings. And it's going to be recommended that you replace your filters on a quarterly basis. So, you're running it 4 times a year, you're changing hundreds of filters. You have filter costs, you have the labor, you have time. So all that stuff kind of adds up and it adds to the headache of servicing your filters. If those filters are also hard to get to, if you have to maybe, go in the roof or go in the ceiling, climb on top of the roof. If it's 110 degrees outside in Texas, nobody really wants to be on the roof changing air filters. Same vice versa. If, it's 5 degrees outside, nobody really wants to be doing it. Then there's bad practice. Through our interviews, we really heard a lot of just kind of bad servicing habits and kind of negligence, really. I heard a story about somebody who didn't change their air filters until somebody really complained that they were feeling sick or, complained about it. I've heard about, maintenance people stopping halfway through, the filter changes and just throwing the new ones away because they were tired of doing it. So, I mean, a lot of it really has to do with just getting the job done and the bad habits around air filtration. So that's why, having a system that you can remotely service and you don't have to physically go to every single one is really appealing to a lot of these kind of facility professionals. And then there's the environmental impact. Um, a lot of these filters aren't going to be recycled. They're contaminated with, a bunch of stuff on the media. The filters themselves are composed of cardboard, filter material, uh, metal. Sometimes, fiberglass might be in the material. So the process of actually recycling them is pretty difficult. There are some people who do it, but really I think it kind of goes back to bad practice because in all the conversations that I had about, replacing air filters, I don't think recycling even came up once. There's even a procedure that you're supposed to follow when disposing of them. Wear a mask, gloves, don't shake them around, put them in trash bags and tie them up and all that stuff. But I mean, I really didn't hear anything about that from the people who are actually servicing, these systems. So our solution is the Onedrus air filtration system. Uh, our system would only require one annual servicing to replace that scroll filter. It can be configured to filtration needs, so we can make it MERV 8, MERV 11, 13, all the way up to HEPA. And we'll also have it in, various sizes. I think there are 26 different standard filter sizes. Uh, so, I mean, it's going to have a lot of variation and come in a lot of different forms. The scroll filter will allow us to remotely index and monitor our system. So it'll save maintenance departments a lot of time and money not having to physically go and service their air filters. They'd essentially be able to log on to or look at the app, look at some sort of software and see the health of their system through pressure drop monitors. And when they can tell that, their filter is dirty, it's putting a little strain on the system, you activate the filter and your dirty material is replaced with a new one and, the efficiency will go back up and, essentially just service your filter without having to go there. And then it extends main filter life. In a retrofitted building, this unit will likely be located in the ductwork at a central point for return air and fresh air. So it'll be somewhere along the line in front of the main filters of the handler, and it'll be doing a lot of the work itself so that it can possibly extend the filters that are located in the handler. I think that the ultimate goal for us is to get this to a point where, we can license this IP to a larger manufacturer that they can build directly into the air handlers. I think that's probably the ideal location for this. But there are some challenges getting this system into an air handler, especially once, they're already put in or implemented into a building. There are warranties, so we can't necessarily go in and mess around with the air handlers. That was a concern from some kind of building professionals. And then there's also just size issues. There's so many different air handlers and makes and models that it would be really hard to try to design something that could fit everything. And, if you open up an air handler, might be, just things in the way that would make it difficult for us to retrofit this system directly into the air handler. So ideally, we'd want it built in the manufacturing process. So the benefits of having our system, reduced operating costs. So a little bit later on, I'll show you guys, what that might look like for a school district. So the idea is that if you are able to reduce the amount of cycles and servicing that you're doing, that you can save on the replacement filters and the labor to do it, you'll get the effective air filtration because we'll be able to configure this to, specific MERV ratings and even be able to kind of double up the layers so that you're getting more filtration. It'll be good for your HVAC system health because you can keep your filters cleaner more consistently. And then you recover time. You're not spending, weeks replacing air filters. Sometimes, these are month-long projects. So when we did the research, we had a lot of places to look, and there were a lot of viable, locations for this system. Schools and universities was our main focus during FedTech, and I have a few slides coming up about, why that is. But there's also medical facilities, hospitals, surgery rooms, airports, train stations, pharmaceuticals, hospitality. Like all these places are viable options for this system because they all kind of share the same problem. They have real estate, they have air filtration requirements, and they're constantly servicing their systems. So our main focus from FedTech was schools and universities, but we really can see this kind of maybe fitting all these eventually. So kind of getting into the use case for schools and universities, I found this quote, and it kind of goes back to the bad habits. So in January 2020, they did a study, 104 classrooms in 11 California schools. Only 15% met the state ventilation standards. These were schools with new HVAC equipment within 3 years prior to the study, but the researchers found that the required inspections to keep them in good shape were not regularly completed at each school. So, I think it kind of just emphasizes the point that maintenance is the problem. Bad habits, the cost, all those things kind of add up. And, even if you have a new system, if you're not properly maintaining your filters in the system, it really won't matter as much. So we spent a lot of time in FedTech, talking to schools and universities. I spoke to, San Diego Unified, schools in Tennessee, New York, Massachusetts, up in Northern California, the Midwest and Ohio, all those things. And there were a few things that kind of came up that, kind of reinforced the problems that schools and universities were facing. One of them was the disproportionate amount of work for the small maintenance staff. So they have a lot of buildings. Some of these maintenance staffs are only 8 to 10 people, and they have responsibilities really to maintain everything. So changing out, thousands of air filters isn't ideal for them. It takes a lot of time and a lot of resources. And it really puts a strain on some of these maintenance staffs. The cost, air filtration is expensive when you're using or when you're occupying a lot of buildings. The aging commercial buildings, once these HVAC systems are in place, it's not likely for schools and universities to outright replace their HVAC systems. That's an expensive project, and coming from them, they're not looking to do that. And then COVID-19, obviously, because that's what everybody was talking about last year. I got a lot of questions about how COVID-19, or if we could address COVID-19. The short, overly simple answer is yes, we can. For us, the filter material that would be within the filter is going to be the same as you could buy, in a store or from a supplier. So if we wanted to make a filter that could address COVID-19, we would just kind of configure our filter to be maybe MERV 13, HEPA for sure. But there's a few problems with that in the commercial application, especially in schools and universities, and this came up in the conversations, is that for COVID, you'd want to upgrade your system to MERV 13, right? But because of the aging buildings that they have, a lot of their HVAC systems aren't equipped to handle the required CFM for a MERV 13. So they won't want to put a MERV 13 filter in if their fans can't keep up, and eventually will cause their system to fail. One thing that was brought up to me by the inventors of our technology, and I'm not claiming this yet, but supposedly if we are able to combine the filter stages, we can reach an efficiency of MERV 13 without putting the strain on the system. So that's something we'll be looking at kind of going forward. I'm not making that claim yet because we haven't really gotten that far. But if we're able to do that, that'll be a big plus for our system here. On the right side is just a little bit of data I collected from a large Midwest school district. This was a school district with approximately 300 buildings, 165,000 students and faculty, and they were changing their filters quarterly with both MERV 8 and MERV 11. So on the quarterly side, we see, they're spending $260,000 a year just on, or $260,000 a quarter on replacement filters, and $172,000 on the labor to replace it. And then, sorry, that's a typo. This should be 9,600 hours, 9,600. So if they're running that 4 times, they're spending $1 million on replacement filters, nearly $700,000 on the labor, and almost 40,000 hours to service their air filters throughout the year. The idea of having our system in is that we can reduce the number of servicings in the year. So even if we can take it down to 2, on paper, we look at it as, maybe we can cut these in half, which would, reduce the operating costs for these schools and school districts and kind of maybe open up some more money to be used elsewhere. Same thing with the time too. So Mark, one of our co-founders, Mark, is going to come on and just speak about this slide and a study that he found from Fairfax County Public Schools about their response to COVID and upgrading their filters from MERV 8 to MERV 13.
Thanks, Aaron. Indoor air quality has been a growing concern and issue for the ventilation community for many years. I think that became accentuated about a year ago.
You're a little quiet.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
If you could speak a little louder. Sorry.
All right.
Yeah.
So thanks, Aaron. As Aaron mentioned, indoor air quality has been an important issue in the ventilation community for many years, and a lot of efforts have been put forward in a variety of different ways to help improve the work experience or the student experience in terms of indoor air quality. About a year ago, everything kind of changed. Air quality became much more important as we were faced with the challenges of the COVID virus and the impact on ventilation. The recommendations from CDC and also from ASHRA, which is the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers, is an increase in airflow is the primary discussion point to get more fresh air into the buildings. They also have made a recommendation to go from the current MERV 8 standard to a MERV 13 filtration standard. So that has implications on a couple of different perspectives. So number one, overall cost per filter goes up because it's a more expensive filter. I think also if you look at it in terms of most of the buildings that we've looked at, you have a mix of the 26 standard sizes filters, which Aaron mentioned, but you also have about 40% of the filters that are used in school systems are custom designed. That really starts to drive the implementation cost. We looked at a report from Fairfax County Public Schools, and they were looking in September of last year, what do we do in terms of reopening, how do we handle our air filtration needs. The school's about 190,000 students, they have 222 buildings, about 27 million square feet of physical plant. At the end of the day, they started looking at the base cost, which is what Aaron had shown previously for Dallas, and it's very similar in terms of the annual cost. But when you start looking at it from the standpoint of upgrading from MERV 8 to MERV 13, and then the second aspect of it is because of the higher filter levels, the saturation level is hit more quickly. And so instead of replacing just 4 times a year, you could be replacing them 6 times a year. So a series of implications. All of this in an environment where cost is a primary concern, you could actually end up having a 3 to 5-fold increase in terms of the costs that are associated. There will be differences in implementation, but I think the opportunities here is that when you look at alternatives, there is room in the economics to provide a better quality filtration. I think there's also room in terms of addressing the maintenance needs that are associated with replacement and ending up providing better quality air within not only schools, but within the other type of commercial buildings. So that's a look to try to put in context of what the implications are of addressing new airflows from a safety standpoint. But those concerns will continue for a variety of different reasons, and so it's a challenge for the customer and something I think we can help make a difference in not only the quality of the air, but the economics.
Yeah. And yeah, that's a good point that, as you try to increase, your MERV rating, the filter life decreases. So a MERV 8 will, recommend to be placed every 3 months. A MERV 13 is going to be 60 days, 2 months. So, the response that a lot of schools are having to COVID has been upgrade your MERV rating, increase the amount of servicings a year, or find, some sort of alternative kind of filtration, whether that's kind of standalone units that you plug into classrooms, or I don't know, UV lights within the ducting. But the portable units, when I was speaking to San Diego Unified, they were looking into it, but when they did the math about how many units they would need throughout the school, the energy and the cost of the units didn't justify, the purchase of them. And then the same thing with UV. It doesn't address maintenance at all, the problem of maintenance. And there is a risk that if something were to break on one of these UV lights and some of those chemicals were to leak in your HVAC system, now it's going to be circulating throughout your building. So those are some of the common responses to COVID as far as air filtration goes. Like I said, we can address it to a degree. It just is a matter of what we want our filter material to be. But we're adding another layer of filtration to existing buildings, which would, in theory, improve air quality. So kind of based off of our initial research, when we're getting into the licensing, these were the kind of the big takeaways from FedTech and a lot of our interviews. And that was, what is our value? And that was the ability to remotely service our filter and reduce maintenance. When I was doing my interviews, I didn't talk a lot about the technology. I just talked about, what were your filtration habits? And then I asked people, if you could design a better filtration unit, what would the features be? And pretty much every time, the response was less maintenance, high efficiency. And, I think for us, that was really, refreshing to hear because that was our value proposition. We're a system that can remotely service itself and basically make, some less work for these maintenance systems. So to hear that from the interviews was good. It confirmed kind of what we thought and really kind of clarified what our value proposition was. The needs, school districts were one of the many places that need, upgrades to their HVAC and air filtration. And then more research. We learned a lot in the program, but over the past year, I think we've really covered a lot of ground. I mean, we've even made pivots in the business plan as recently as last week based off of, new things that we're learning from the design and engineering of our unit. So, I mean, we weren't air filtration experts when we started, definitely still aren't air filtration experts now. So, I mean, I think we always need to keep learning and keep researching. In 2021, this was kind of right after we got through the licensing process with NASA. And one thing is like, I think we thought that because we were told that this could be a commercial unit, that there was going to be maybe a little bit more uh, there to help us kind of build it. But pretty much what we already had for the what we already had was pretty much all that was kind of available at the time. So our first big challenge in 2021 was just figuring out how are we going to build and prototype. We started looking at OEMs, but we were having a hard time finding one that could help us engineer and build it. COVID, I think, put a lot of strain on some manufacturers, and I was told that they had to let people go, and they didn't have the capacity to take on a project like ours. We were lucky enough to get connected to Magnet in Cleveland, Ohio, the Manufacturing Advocacy and Growth Network. Um, they're not a manufacturer themselves, but they do a number of manufacturing projects and services in the state of Ohio. So we are fortunate that they have a startup iteration kind of service that will help engineer and validate, your prototype, and then from there help you find a manufacturer and get that thing all settled. They also have startup services to help with our go-to-market business strategy, any IP research that we want to do. So getting connected to them was really fortunate for us. It was good timing. Everything that they offer as a service is kind of what we were looking for to help bridge the gap, in the engineering and manufacturing part. We also found an HVAC consultant, Jonathan Scherer. I connected with him over Upwork. We were looking for an HVAC consultant to help us with the build, and he's been really great. He's been in on a lot of the engineering and design meetings, and he has a lot of good input that I feel is really helping us move forward with this. And he has a lot of experience, within HVAC and air filtration, so he has some insight into, how things work. From a product development standpoint, these are the three steps that, we're looking at right now. So right now we're with Magnet, working on the product development and engineering to reach our MVP and to get a product that is lab testable. At the lab stage, we've had a brief kind of discussion, I guess, about, possibly using the Glenn Research Center, one of their testing rigs to test some of the mechanical features of the filter. But eventually we'll want to take it to a private lab and get the full range of air filtration tests done so we can configure the filter material and collect data that we'll eventually need for the product and once it goes to market. And then, we need to get it into the real world, put it in some buildings and, see how it works, collect data. The energy usage thing is something I'm going to be taking a look at. There's not a whole lot of documentation about, energy reduction with advanced filtration. So that's something that, I think that if we can prove during the real world test, that would really, add value to our system. We have, a few school districts that have already agreed to help us test and use some of their buildings, but we'll probably be looking to add it to a few different types of buildings, maybe, casino, office building, just test it in a few different use cases. So what's next for us? Develop into a product we can license. I think that's probably our ultimate. Build this up into something that we can take to a larger manufacturer and license to them to build directly into the units. The market trends would tell us that large manufacturers tend to buy out small and medium-sized firms to increase their product offering. So it's also potentially a exit for us. And that was something that was kind of confirmed by our HVAC consultant and some of the things that he's seen. So I think that gives us kind of a pretty tangible exit. Like I said, I think that's kind of the ideal kind of location for the filter. Set fundraising goals and pursue. We are still, working on our cost of goods and developing our financial models. to really figure out, what is our fundraising goal? How much money do we think that we need to go, and what's our strategy? Krishma has been looking at SBIRs, and we're planning on submitting to a few of them for some potential funds in the future. But there are also grants, angel rounds, other fundraising options that we're looking at as well. And then, reassessing our business plan based off of really everything that we've learned in the past year. And as we learn through the product development and engineering, things change. Like I said, just as recently as last week, we've made changes to our business plan based off what we've learned. So last slide here, kind of tech transfer advice. If anybody is interested in, being a part of the tech transfer program at NASA, these are just a couple of things that, I would just say, keep an open mind. There are a lot of patents available, and, it's about finding something that actually solves a problem. Like I said, the air filter was my last choice. I didn't really think much about it at the time, but after we did the research, we really found that, there was a clear problem and solution that this technology kind of addressed. So just keep an open mind. There's a ton of patents in there, and really, everything. And then there's going to be a lot of work. So just because they tell you that the technology is capable of doing something doesn't mean that NASA has really done anything to get it there. Their business is space, so they're not really developing this technology to go into the commercial application. That's our job, and that's the point of tech transfer. So that's just something to keep in mind. So thank you to everybody who listened in today. If there's anything you'd like to contact me about, my email is there, aaronwallace@onedrus.com. You can also visit the website. There's a link to sign up for our email updates kind of as we progress. And then you can also follow us on LinkedIn. We'll also be posting our updates there as well. Thank you.